This is Here's How, Ireland's political, social and current affairs podcast, presented by William Campbell.
This is episode 0 of Here's How. Thanks for downloading. In future episodes, Here's How will be a phone-in podcast about politics, society and current affairs. But since this is episode 0, there are no calls and there's only one contributor. That's me.
Here's How is Ireland's political, social and current affairs podcast. Make your view heard. Just dial 076 603 5060 and tell the world what you're thinking. Your voicemail may be included in the next podcast. You can find tips on recording your contribution and other ways to contact the show at here'show.ie/call.
This podcast is going to be about expressing your ideas and your opinions and seeing if they stand up to scrutiny. You can phone the 24-hour line and record your contribution and I'll play it, if it's good, and discuss it. All shades of opinion are welcome. This won't be a show for insults or for shouting people down, though. On this podcast, what matters is the strength of your argument, not the strength of your voice. And since this is the episode 0, I get to talk about whatever I want to talk about, and I want to talk about things that we're not allowed to talk about. Some of them are pretty simple. For example, we're not allowed to say that 29 people were murdered in the Omagh bombing. We have to say 29 people, including a woman pregnant with twins. Fair enough, maybe. But other things are more troublesome. We're not allowed to say the simple 4-word sentence, "The Gardaí are corrupt." Now, there's been recent scandals and that's allowed us to push out the boat a bit and say that there are problems in the force or there are issues that need to be addressed. But we're only allowed to say that if we follow up quickly by saying that the vast, vast, vast majority of Gardaí are honest and hardworking. Now, 3 vasts are recommended here, but 2 might be enough if you make a quick turn of your head to the side for emphasis. We're not allowed to ask why such a vast number of honest, hard-working Gardaí don't seem to notice the crime wave going on in their ranks. We're not allowed to say that the Catholic priesthood is dominated by elderly gay men who grew up in an era when the difficulty of coming out was more than they had courage for. We're not allowed to say that they warped their own sexuality by denying it. And we're only allowed to talk about the issue at all if we stress that the majority, 2 vasts and 1 overwhelming is required here, the vast, vast overwhelming majority of priests do great work. We're not allowed to say that international comparisons of work rates and pay rates indicate that a large portion of our public sector is lazy and greedy. We're not allowed to say that the debate over the Irish language is a proxy for our conflicted feelings of shame of the past and fear of the new. We're not allowed to say that retired people in Ireland control a greater portion of wealth and income than almost any other Western country, and that this harms the economy, removing wealth from circulation. We're not allowed to say that even if we don't dislike immigrants, we don't dislike some of them more than we don't dislike others. We're not allowed to say that we don't like teenage boys. We aren't allowed to say that we wish they would just disappear from the age of 10 to at least 20. We don't want to hear about them, and we definitely don't want to hear from them. We don't even want them taking up that annual place in the newspapers that's reserved for pictures of pretty girls receiving their Leaving Cert results. And when they kill themselves, we're not allowed to ask why. We're not even allowed to say committed suicide anymore. And we're certainly not allowed to say narcissistic and selfish. Mostly we just have to say single vehicle crash. And we're not allowed to say that 2 members of the current Oireachtas that we know of have attempted suicide. We're not allowed to say that coverage of the Special Olympics is the product of embarrassment, not interest. And we aren't allowed to ask why Brian Crowley keeps getting a huge vote despite having nothing to show for his 20 years in the European Parliament. And we're definitely not allowed to point out that his website has 4 photos of him in a wheelchair, 5 text mentions of his disability, and not a single achievement other than topping the poll. We're not allowed to say that it might be voters, not political parties, that are preventing women from making it to the Dáil. We're not allowed to say that this might include women voters, and we're not allowed to point out that 80% of independent candidates are men. We're not allowed to say that the bulk of farm subsidies go to wealthy landowners, depressing the prices for small farmholders, who are then used as poster boys of poverty to justify the continued payments. And we're certainly not allowed to point out that not 1 cent of farm subsidies goes to the lowest paid people in agriculture, often immigrant farm workers. I know that some people don't want to talk about some of these topics because they don't want to hurt people's feelings, or perhaps because they are justifiably afraid of challenging authority. On this podcast, that is not going to be the policy. We should know by now the danger of having some topics off limits. So, once you say it respectfully, any idea is open to discussion. Please tell your friends about this podcast. Please follow @Here'sHowPodcast on Twitter, and please retweet when a new show is announced. Please share and recommend us on Facebook, and please subscribe to the Here's How podcast on iTunes or any other podcast software or app on your phone. You can do all of this right from the here'show.ie website. But most of all, I want you to contribute your ideas and your opinions. Dial 076 603 5060 to record your message, and you can find information on other ways to contribute and tips on how to make a good contribution at here'show.ie/call. Episode 1 will be published soon, along with your phone calls. I'm William Campbell. Thank you for listening.